Hello, everybody. My name is Danielle Love, and welcome to this episode of Real Life Sex, where we love to shed lots of light on all of the ways in which we have divine sovereignty to make our own rules in our own intimate relationships and do so unapologetically. And we also invite other folks to release all judgment around what other folks want to do. And in fact, just listen in and learn and see how you can learn to do what you want to do, what you desire, what brings you pleasure by listening to other folks share their experiences on the topic. So I am bringing you an amazing human being today. I'm going to read you her bio, very short bio, and then we're going to get into like the really good stuff. So Loreal Moss is on a mission to help moms rediscover who they are outside of their roles as caregivers and partners. This Southern polyamorous kink enthusiast is far from traditional in her views on life, love, and parenting, and she isn't afraid to speak her mind. So Loreal, thank you so much for taking your time to be with me today and also to share your unapologetic expressions with the larger interweb. How are you today?
I'm doing well, and it's my pleasure. I'm doing really well. How are you?
I am doing well as well. I always tell people too in the interview, like, this is mine and Loreal's first conversation. So we really don't have a lot of like background on each other. And that excites me because I'm as excited to learn about your lifestyle. And I hope everybody else gets as excited through me. So obviously your bio says polyamorous kink enthusiast. And so I'm all about all of that. But what I would like to know is, how did you know that you were all about that? Has that been kind of how it's been since you were younger? How did you know? And like, how did you get yourself kind of into the community and the practices and the lifestyle that you're in now?
Well, it did start really young. You know, it's not uncommon to hear people say, well, kids don't really know anything. Kids know more about who they are when they are before they get older, you know? And so I knew when I was like, I want to say 6 years old, that something was different, because when all of the other little girls were like, oh, I like this boy, I like that boy, I was like, I like that boy, this girl, you know? And so I knew from a young age, around 6, 7, I knew that I thought women were beautiful, but not in the same way that other girls did. I had crushes on girls a lot, just like I had crushes on boys, and never really thought anything of it other than, I don't think anybody else kind of shares this. And so even then I knew kind of not to speak on it. It was something that didn't really make me comfortable. And all throughout high school, I was a cheater because I knew that I wanted to be with multiple people, but didn't know how to have those conversations. And I cheated a lot. Yeah. I didn't know what I didn't know. And it really wasn't until I separated from my husband that I was absolutely sure about what it was that I wanted. So before we separated, we had done like some swinging and things like that, which was fun. But I knew that I wanted more. I wanted it to be more than about just random sex and hookups, because that's never really been my thing. My thing has always been the love and the connection and the conversation and the relationship. But it wasn't until I separated from my husband and really got to know myself again that I could really accept that and figure out what that looked like for me.
Yes. And that is such an important point. Actually, one of my previous interviewees that by the time this comes out will have been released, she had a very similar experience but what you said is so important. You took the time to be with yourself so that you could have quiet and peace and listen and feel through your own desires, so that you weren't just kind of waiting on whether it was the husband or one of the swinging couples or some other person to just kind of swoop in and be like, well, here's what you need and I'm going to give it to you. How did you know you needed to do that? Because I think so many women out there are either between relationships or in a relationship that's really not particularly fully satisfying to them, but they think being alone is like the worst possible outcome, so they don't give it a thought. So can you speak on that part of it, please? Because I think it's so important.
Being alone is such a gift, because when you are trying to find yourself, it's so much harder to do that when you are in a relationship with someone else, because if you're a person who is empathic and compassionate, you have to consider their needs and their feelings. When you are alone, you don't have to worry about any of that shit. You are free to focus on what you want, and you can be selfish. People have taught women that being selfish is the worst thing that you could be, that you're supposed to just give and give and give and give. And I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I was even told as a kid, once you get married and have kids, what you want has to wait, because you have to take care of your husband and you have to take care of your children and all of that. And it is the biggest fucking lie. It is the biggest lie. Like, just know, being alone is only a problem and a burden if you perceive it that way. And if you perceive it that way, that's how you know that you have some internal work that you need to be doing. Because if you're by yourself and you cannot stand your own company, if you are by yourself and you feel like something is wrong with you because you're alone, it's time for you to look in the mirror and figure out where that's coming from. Because there's nothing that anybody can give you, no amount of sex, no amount of money, no amount of love, that is going to help you be comfortable with being by yourself. So the turning point for me personally, and I'm so grateful for this, when I tell people that, they're like, oh my God, because my husband and I were back together. But the turning point was when he finally had the conversation with me about us separating. I knew it was coming 2 years before, because I am intuitive and all of that. So I knew that it was coming. I was actually supposed to start that conversation, but I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. He's going to have to do it. I'm not leaving. Mm-hmm. And so when he finally sat down to talk to me, he told me that he needed to get himself together, which, okay, I get it, because it's always the other person, right? So he's like, it started out as it's not you, it's me. But then it became, I lost respect for you because you became somebody that I didn't recognize.
So
and I was like,
grew into somebody that was actually more of your true self, and he wasn't trying to have that. Is that
No. He was actually spot on with that.
Oh,
he was spot on, because I used to be outspoken and fun and lively. And I had changed who I was completely to try to become what society said a perfect wife and a perfect mom was supposed to be. Damn. I stopped speaking up for myself. I stopped sharing my ideas. I stopped hanging out with my friends because I assumed that this is what he wanted, and he never wanted that. Never wanted any of that. So he was spot on. I became somebody that he didn't recognize. He didn't know who I was. He didn't know who he was with anymore.
Okay. That makes sense. And so
yeah.
That actually makes sense, because I'm sitting here thinking you're growing and being more, but actually you were shrinking, and you were contracting into this idea that society does. And I mean, and I'll just say I didn't have that narrative when I was growing up about you need to do this or get a husband and have kids. But at the same time, I still came to the same conclusions as you, as no, like I've been married for 15 years and my husband and I just did a live about kind of like getting rid of the whole traditional gender roles. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, the wife is supposed to do the laundry and do all the cooking, and like, not really. This is 2021. Like, this is not, that's actually just toxic patriarchal systems in work. And we're not accepting that anymore, or at least I'm not. I never was.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you were either. At least you were, though. But so tell me a little bit more about that. So you were kind of accepting that, and then not being yourself. And that's painful for everyone. So
it's really common for Black women to grow up with this narrative, because it's what has been passed down from slavery. Like, you did what you needed to do. It was your responsibility to keep the family traditions. It was your responsibility to take care of the children and the husband, and to try to keep everything together. Moving on into the days post-slavery, where it's like, you have to have a man to take care of you, because you can't do anything without him. He's going to protect you, because Black men were given more rights before Black women. And so once they got that bit of power, once they were able to start making decisions for themselves, no matter how small those decisions were, it became, well, now you don't have to do it by yourself, but you need to do it all for him. You need to do it all for your family. So it still became the same thing with just a few little tweaks on it, a little bit of sugar on top of the shit, right? Hoping that it didn't start to smell. And so it just became passed down. So not everyone has that experience, but it's really common for Black women to grow up with similar narratives. And so I knew that I didn't want to be a traditional housewife. So there are things that I want to do that I correlated with being a housewife. And now I'm like, no, you don't have to be a housewife to do basic shit like spend time with your kids. You know, I felt like in order for me to have the time that I wanted with my children, I had to be a stay-at-home mom. I had to put myself into this mode because only these women can do that. If you're a working woman, if you're an ambitious woman, you don't have time for your kids. You don't have time for your husband, you know? And so there was a lot of unlearning that had to happen once I separated from him. That was like a golden opportunity.
Yeah. For
me to really figure out what I wanted.
And that's just, I mean, it's beautiful that it presented itself in such a way that, and it sounds like it was mutually agreed.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So good. That's a good thing. And speaking on all of those things that you just spoke on as well, because obviously I can't share that perspective, but it's a perspective that needs to be much more widely spoken on and shared. So thank you for sharing that as well.
Of course.
So tell me more about, so when the separation happened, what happened? What was like, they're a blossoming, you were like, I am polyamorous, kink enthusiast. How did that begin to formulate in your life?
So it wasn't pretty and it wasn't fun. You know, it's not like how it is on TV where it's like, oh, I'm separated, I'm gonna go and get drunk and have flings. And like I was sad. I cried a lot. I was depressed. I was angry. There was a grieving period, but it was also a period of me being quiet and allowing my prayers to be answered. I had prayed a lot to feel closer to spirit, to feel closer to my guides, to hear them more clearly, to be led because I had major decision fatigue. I was tired of making decisions alone all the time. And so in my grief, I got really quiet. I took some time off social media. I was off social media for about 3-4 months during this time. And I got quiet and I let them speak to me. And I had to look myself in the mirror and take responsibility for my contribution to what led up to the separation, to what led to my own unhappiness. I had to take responsibility for that. And so once I began to take responsibility for that and do the work, I just started asking myself every day, well, what do you want? How do you want to feel? And at first it was like, well, I don't really know. Because everything had been tied to my husband, my kids, trying to build a business. And I just want to say this really quickly. If you have a 9-to-5 and you want to start a business, it's best to do it while you're working. Please do not quit your job to try to build a business. You will be stressed and just, it's not worth it. The people that are telling you to quit your job are already financially secure. Do not, do it.
And I think that's such an important point too. And I'm actually glad you went off on that tangent a little bit because it speaks to the narrative that you've already spoken to, where it doesn't have to be this or that in life. You can be this and that and that and that. Like,
yes.
About like you have to be these things to be. It's either this, you're a housewife, or you're a hoe. No, I'm a hoe and a housewife. Like,
right. Period.
That's it.
Period.
And any other thing that I would like to put on myself through my pleasures, my desires, I can add all these ends. It's not binary. And I think that's so important. You can start a side hustle, build yourself up while you're still working at your 9-to-5.
Yes.
So it's really that narrative of like, I always say binaries are bullshit. They don't, they're not real. And they keep us, a lot of women, trapped in this, like, well, I have to do this or I have to do this. And there's no other option. And so I'm actually really glad you spoke to that because it's really a lot about and I want so many more women to embrace that as their own narrative in their own lives because it's liberating. So excellent point in my
it is. Yeah, it is. And so everything was about like trying to grow my business. And it's like, oh, if you have a job, then something's wrong with you. And no, I have a job. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but I'm not stressed. I know that I'm going to have steady income coming in. I know that I'm going to be able to feed my family. My husband pays all my bills. I don't have to do anything, but he wouldn't have gotten to that point if we hadn't separated. And if I hadn't took the time to figure out what I wanted and put my boundaries in place so I could communicate that with him and give him the opportunity to either rise to the occasion or decide that that's not what he wanted and go off and get what he wanted. Yeah. And so I just started asking myself every day, what do you want? How do you want to feel? I started on the internal, and then I began to express externally. So playing around with different hair colors, using a lot more different colors of hair, the piercings, like this isn't real, but just wanting to see what it looks like. What if I had this? What if I had, what if I wore more kind of strappy clothes? And what if I stopped wearing bras for a while? Just allowing myself to do that. Yeah. To just break all of those, oh, you can't, your boobs are too big, you can't just not wear a bra. And it's like,
that's one that I have one on today. That I run with too. I have that narrative still in my life that no one's telling it to me except me, if I'm being really honest, but it's there. So.
Yeah. So it's like just sometimes, and my husband has been, he helps me with that now. Cause it's like, oh, I need to go to the store, but I'm not wearing a bra. He's like, girl, go to the store. He's like,
same thing, but I still
right.
Like, these things are flopping.
Right. He's like, let them flop. Let them clap. Let them announce you when you walk into the room. And I'm like, okay, I don't do it all the time, but it took me a while to get to that space.
All right,
and the biggest,
I'm having that as goals.
Yeah. So the biggest thing was just figuring out how I wanted to feel and allowing myself to put boundaries in place. We are the biggest infringers on our own boundaries. We are always bending and shifting to the will of other people, and they don't do it for us. And then we get pissed off. And it's like, no, they're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. And then it's also you taking away from you honoring your own pleasure. You're honoring your own desires. It's a people-pleasing thing. And that's another thing that so many women are hopefully free of or getting themselves free of in the process. Another thing, I just want to not go backwards, but because you said when you separated, it wasn't all party time and this and that. But the whole point about that is that the way that you did it was the healthy way. You sat with your pain. You sat with your grief. You sat with your emotions. You didn't try to drown it out through some Sex in the City bullshit narrative. Like, I'm just going to go out and drink my sorrows away with my girlfriends. And not saying that having a little bit of that is bad, but if that's the way that you're using to cope or process a breakup or a separation, of course, that's not healthy. How did you know? How did you know to do that? Did you have some sort of therapy? Because I'm in therapy. I'm a big fan of mental health help. Did you know? Who told you to do that? How did you know?
I followed my heart. I followed my gut. I looked at the participation. I looked at how I participated to where I was. I was already drowning myself in my spirituality. I was using my spirituality as an escape. I was using my business as an escape to not deal with my problem. And it's like, well, I didn't want to do that again. I didn't want to do that again. I didn't want to be resentful of those things because of what they brought into my life and the connections and all of that. I didn't want to resent those things. But I knew that if escaping with all of these other things participated in creating the bullshit, I didn't want to do it again.
So smart. That's beautiful the way, you listening to your gut, listening to your intuition, understanding that putting little band-aids and covers on big wounds is not actually going to ever do it. It's that's the way, and that's beautiful. Yeah,
because I had for so long, I wasn't trusting myself. That was the root of the problem. That was the root of the problem. I didn't trust myself anymore. I left everything up to other people to decide for me. Yes. So it's like, no, I'm going to make some decisions for myself.
So reclaiming your voice.
Yes.
Reclaiming your voice. And that is something that So again, so many women need to do, and we all have the opportunity, at least at some point. So I'm so glad to hear you speaking that. And so now that you're, well, where I'm going to assume, because I don't know where you are, but in a place where you seem to be in full ownership of your voice, of who you are, of your self-trust, of your self-love, of all of these things, what do you desire? What does bring you pleasure? How do you express that in your life? I mean, because I've seen posts about submissive and dominant and being tell me more about this, because I'm fascinated with this, but it's not my kink. But I love hearing about everyone else's kink. So I would love to hear about that if you want to talk about it.
Okay. Well, I figure for anything that you want to do that people may kind of frown upon, there's always a healthy way to do it. So I just was thinking to myself, I love helping people. I love doing things for people. But it gets to the point where when it's expected for me to do, I don't want to do it anymore.
That's understandable.
So I was thinking, well, how can I get my rocks off? Because it really does make me feel really good to do things for people. So it's like, how can I do this in a healthier way? And that's when I started thinking, that's when I started kind of researching dominance and submission. And I was already connected to sex workers. I was already connected on social media with women who were doing this. But there was this one woman in particular that I had just been drawn to for a while. And I really feel like I manifested the relationship because we're together now. We're in a relationship now. But it's just kind of the way everything happened. Yeah, I did. I know I did. But I was thinking, how can I do this? And I also still wanted help with that decision fatigue. So I still wanted someone to tell me what to do, but in a healthy way. And that's what dominance should be. There's different degrees of it. But if there's someone who just wants to control you and they're not trying to help you, they're doing it from a space of I have power over you instead of I want to empower you, that's a really big red flag. Yeah. And one of the things that drew me to this woman was how full of integrity she was about the way she treated her clients. There was always a purpose for things. And she never, ever did anything that her clients did not consent to. There are a lot of fake doms out there that like to just humiliate people because they're mean fucking people. And they like to pass it off as, oh, I'm just dominant. No, you're a bitch. No, you're mean.
And you probably need
therapy.
Yeah.
Right. You fucking need therapy. That's not okay. Like you can't just be out here doing that to people without their consent. So that's how all of that started. I knew I was into it. I want to say back in high school though, because I used to watch Real Sex. I used to watch Real Sex and like Taxi Cab Confessions and all that kind of stuff. And they did a couple of episodes on like Kink and BDSM. And I was like, this is really cool. I always thought it was cool. And I can definitely say that my experience is not at all like what I saw on TV, but I know that there are people that have experiences like that. My experience is completely based on mutual agreement between me and my domino.
And are there, if you know, and maybe you don't, are there situations, I'm assuming there are, where with consent, somebody does actually want to be treated poorly.
Yeah.
How we interpret as poorly. But that's something that needs to be kind of agreed upon.
Yes.
I think that that's at the foundation of every sexual interaction, period, regardless of whether it's submissive or dominant. I mean, obviously consent is everything.
Yes, everything.
Everything. And having a language that you can speak with, not only does it make you feel more comfortable, but it makes you much more open to receiving in that experience, whatever that is. And so is that your experience, I guess, with your domina? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's what I call her. Yes.
I love that word as well, because I don't know if you watched Spartacus or whatever. It was like an HBO, it was years ago, about the Spartans and like the lady that was like in charge of all the fighters. Her name was Domina. And my husband like called me Domina sometimes. And I didn't know that was actually like, he was just saying, because we watched the show and it was hot and they had a lot of hot sex. But yeah, no, I really love that name. So did she teach you about that dynamic, about the boundaries, or did you go in with that? And then how do you carry that? Because if you're poly, and I don't know how many partners you have, but how do you, maybe someone comes to you then who doesn't have as much experience, how do you then kind of impart that wisdom and way of being in relationship, in that type of relationship, to other people?
So I knew what boundaries were, but I didn't know if it translated the same way into the BDSM lifestyle. And so we talked about it. We had a lot of conversations about what I wanted and the things that I desired as a person before we ever talked about anything related to BDSM. So we talked a lot about what I wanted just for my life overall before we started talking about anything BDSM related. We had so many discussions. We built a friendship before anything else happened. And then she posted something online about how she was looking for let me back up first. So we were friends, and I just loved her when we were just friends. And I went to this retreat and I did this whole visualization, and I saw this woman, and I was like, is that how I think it is? I don't know. I want to feel into the energy and blah, blah, blah. And then I want to say a few months after the retreat, she posted a status saying that she was looking for a new lifestyle sub. And I was like, yes, this is my chance to shoot my shot. And so I reached out to her, and lo and behold, she was like, I was really hoping you responded. She said, I posted it because I wanted you to see it. I was too afraid to just send it to you in your DM. And she said other people were reaching out, and she was like, no, not you. She's like, I'm waiting on this one person, which I thought was so cute. But that is kind of,
because you don't somebody like you would say as a domino or a dominatrix has those qualities. But I think that's again so important. It's like, don't just blanket statement somebody has a label doesn't mean they have only these qualities. And I think that's
it's really important. A lot of people don't understand. There are people who are pro dominance, which means they do it professionally. They receive money. That is a persona. That is a character. They don't walk around treating people like that all day. They don't eat, sleep, breathe, spanking people and calling them bitches and stuff. It's not that. These are real people who have their own mental health issues, their own family problems, their own desires, their own shit they're working through. That is a character that they're playing. A lot of people don't realize that. And there's pro-dominance.
Right.
Yes. And then there's lifestyle, which is what I'm participating in, where we are in a relationship, and I am also serving her in ways that we've agreed upon within our dynamic.
The service that you give to her brings you pleasure and her pleasure.
So much.
Correct.
Yes. So much.
Yes. Yep. And that's so important too. I mean, I think that people think that, oh, the dominatrix is this, just plays this role. But I think it's so much more rich and fulfilling when you're both getting pleasure from the exchange. It's not just one.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Yeah. Speak more about the lifestyle versus the pro. So the woman that you're speaking with, she's not doing this as a job.
She does do it as a job. She does have clients. Yeah, she does both. She does do this as a job. She has her clients and everything. But one of the things that really made me comfortable, we had a trial period. So we had our initial discussion, I think, was maybe 2 hours, where we went through, I guess, a shortened version of her contract. And we discussed my hard limits, which are absolute no. We discussed things where I'm kind of, I'm open to it, and things that were a definite yes. and it so much stuff was on there, and that and before we even got to the really long discussion, the full contract, I think we were on the phone for 3.5, maybe 4 hours, wow, going through every single detail, because there's so much, and people are into some weird shit. And so we had to talk about those things. Yeah. So we did, I want to say like a 6-month trial. During that trial, she would give me assignments. She would tell me things that she wanted me to do to see if I could do if I would be a good submissive, if I would follow through. And I'm nerdy. I'm star student. I pride myself on my ability to follow instructions and get the good grades. And so I was like, I'm not failing. I'm going to ace this. Like, I treated it like a test. I'm like, I'm going to ace it. And so the things that she had me do helped me in my life and in reconciling with my husband, because that's something that I absolutely wanted to do. So she challenged me to buy clothes that made me feel good. I would wear something and she's like, I don't want you to wear that again. Throw it away. Yes, ma'am. And I would fucking throw it away.
Wow.
And she would tell me things that she noticed about the way that I carried myself. And she would challenge me. Hold your head up. Put your shoulders back. Just small things like that, because I was always kind of, not on purpose, but it just became my normal. And so she would just challenge me on things that she saw a lot. I will never forget, I would have to send her a picture of me or of a part of my body. And I would have to tell her why I loved that part of my body. Or I would have to create affirmations like, I am beautiful because blah, blah, blah. And I would have to give her 2 or 3 reasons why. Things like that changed my life.
They will. It's amazing to hear that, because in my coaching, one of the things that I have people do is look at themselves in the mirror naked every single day and do a full body scan while telling every single part of their body how much they love and appreciate it. And what
that is so powerful.
Such a simple act. Sometimes people can't even bring themselves to do it for a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. They'll try and then it'll be overwhelming. But once you get past that, and I'm like, you actually got to like spread your butt cheeks. You got to look at it all. Like you can't just like gloss over your vagina or your penis or your butt or your anus, or you literally have to like tell your anus that you love it. People think I'm insane, but then their entire life changes and they're like, oh my God. So I just love hearing that across all different ways of being in a healthy relationship with other people, that's also being done. That just makes sense.
This was based on my goals. I told her that I wanted to feel better about myself because I didn't like myself. I didn't love myself. And it was hard to have those conversations. But I told her I want to feel better about myself. I want to get to the point where I can wake up every day, and even if I don't feel beautiful, I know I'm beautiful. And I don't have to ask other people if they think I look good. Because if I feel like shit, I probably look it. And if I ask the wrong person, they're going to hurt my feelings. Right. So I told her everything that we've done has been based on the goals that I set for myself. That I set for the kind of life that I wanted to lead. Things have changed now that we are in a relationship and not like during a trial period. Things have changed a little bit, but still consent is everything. And I have no doubts that working with her helped to just totally change the trajectory of my life and my relationship. And not just with her, but my husband, my kids, everybody.
Yes. And I think that's also, it's just so amazing. And I think that's kind of what I want people to know. One of the main things from these talks is that sexual healing is not just a song by Marvin Gaye. Like it is an actual modality of communication, of knowing yourself and knowing other humans on a level that you just can't get to just through conversation. You can get there start a conversation. But the healing that can and does occur in these intimately sexually connected experiences is actually will change the outcome of all other aspects of your life, including your relationship with your kids. Is it okay if you speak on that? It was in your kind of non-traditional views on well, can you speak on how that's affected you in that way? Because I think there's probably a lot of women out there who have no idea that that's even a thing that's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my relationship with my kids started to change around the separation too, because, well, a little bit before we separated, I was like, I'm just really tired of trying to do this shit. These mommy blogs are stressing me the fuck out. This stuff is not working for me and my kids. And so I was like, fuck them. Fuck these kids. Fuck this man. Fuck all this shit. And I actually created a podcast called Girl Fuck Them Kids. And I shared my journey. I shared my healing journey and the things that I was doing so that I could become a better person. I spent so much time focused on being a better mom, and my kids don't see me as just their mom. They see me as a person too. And well, now they do, but initially I was just a machine. Like, oh, mom's going to do everything and blah, blah, blah. And I had to start telling them, mom has feelings. Mom gets tired. Sometimes when I don't want to play with you, it's not because I don't love you. It's because I'm tired. Yeah. And just like if I ask you to clean your room and you're not feeling well, you would be upset if I forced you to do it anyway. That's how I feel if you're forcing me or attempting to force me to play when I don't have the energy to play.
That is powerful.
Yes, I had to start telling them I am not a machine. I am not Superwoman. I also stopped solving all their problems for them. Yes, my kids are small. I have a 4-year-old, 6-year-old, 11-year-old. Yes, they're still young, but they are old enough to know what they like and they don't like. They are old enough to call each other stupid, which means they're old enough to be able to solve small problems by themselves.
And that's empowering.
I have no problem. Right. It's like, no, you can do this. I believe it. You're smart enough. You're strong enough. You can do it. Yep. That's how I go figure it out. I believe that you and your sisters can all come together and reach a conclusion, reach a solution that's going to work for everybody. And mommy doesn't have to be involved.
Wow.
At fucking all.
I can't imagine how many women are watching this that hear that and both are sitting back in horror and also in jealousy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I'm not going to say that it's easy. There are still days where I feel like my kids are fucking bullies, but I tell people kids are small. The fuckery is concentrated because they're little and they still haven't managed. They still don't understand managing emotions. That's where all the tantrums and sometimes they fall out because they don't know what else to do. We've all had moments where it's like, I'm just going to lay here because I can't process anything else. I can't take anything else. We don't kick and scream in public, but we have those moments where we just want to fall the fuck out.
Yes. Because
we can't take anymore.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but they don't have the same skills that you have as an adult.
But by giving them that leeway, like that bandwidth to do that on their own, you're helping them develop it now, which is something that I think, and I can't speak on parenting. I don't have any children. However, my mom and I have lots of conversations. And the thing is that she also empowered me from a very young age to do many things. Also having type 1 diabetes, needing to inject myself with insulin needles at 9 years old, all that stuff. But she she gave me that, yes, you're going to have to take this for the rest of your life.
Yes.
You're going to have to make these dosing decisions. So why not start now? It's not like she left me.
Yes.
And she's not going to help you, but she also said,
right,
you need to do this. And I did. And I'm so grateful, that she gave me that. And I just think that's so powerful. I can't imagine, that whole helicopter mom thing. And I'm not, but I've also in my career seen moms that are dosing insulin for their children when they're 16. And I'm like, you're going to kill your child because that's almost an adult. And they think they don't know how to take their own medicine.
Right.
Problem. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I think giving children decisions and giving them choices is the best thing that you can do. I grew up old school, Southern mom, spare the rod, spoil the child. I don't want to raise my kids like that because I got spankings, whoopings all the fucking time. And I just got to the point where it's like, what is the point of trying to have a conversation? You know, my mom's just going to get pissed off. So I just shut myself off. I don't ever want my kids to feel like that. I don't ever want them to feel like they cannot come to me and talk to me about anything. I'm also not afraid to let my kids know when I feel like they're being mean and they've hurt my feelings. A lot of parents are afraid to express their feelings to their children. Nope, they need to fucking hear it. Because if they come across that one kid at the playground and piss them off, they're going to find out the hard way. Yeah. So they need to learn at home. Yes. They need to learn it at home. So yeah, I still have my days where it's kind of, my kids make me rethink all of my life's decisions, but I love them. I love them, and I'm grateful.
Didn't say that. Every single woman that's a mother has ever said that exact same thing. So that has to be a cross situation. But I just love how your lifestyle choices, how you honoring yourself, honoring your desires, honoring your desire to be autonomous and sovereign and make your own decisions, and then bringing in a kink related kind of healing modality through a dominant and submissive relationship allowed you to open that up. And then it again spilled out all of the positivity into how you are able to communicate with your children now. It's just such a beautiful progression. Yeah. And so as I say, we've been talking for a while, and I feel like I could definitely just keep talking to you about things like this. But I know y'all got things to do. Is there any other area you feel like this has affected in a positive way, or really just any kind of other overarching idea or story or experience that you think is important for people to know when it comes to exploring kink or honoring your own desires, or, you know, just giving yourself that freedom?
I think that the biggest thing is, like, you don't even have to be into kink, you know, to do it. But if you are having a hard time finding ways to be yourself, I suggest entering into a dominant submissive relationship. And your dominant will, they have your best interest at heart. A lot of people, when they hear about it, they feel like the dominant is the one with all the power, but it's really the submissive. Because if you say no, they have to abide by that. Yeah. Your no is law, period. If you say no, it's no. I would suggest it, but before entering into that, I suggest therapy. Yes. If you disclose to a potential dom that you have mental health issues and they ignore that, that's a red flag.
Big one. Yes.
If they do not want to talk to you, or if they don't ever mention consent and boundaries and limits, that's a red flag. There's so many things, and I don't even know if we have time to go through them all, but this is something, it's something that people see on the media, and it's like, oh, it's going to be like this, but no. When you're watching those movies and you see people getting like flogged and pegged and all of this, they've agreed to it. They have agreed to it. Right. Yes, that is their kink. Yeah. What you don't see is the aftercare. You don't see what their dominant does for them afterwards.
Or the initial
to check in. Right. You don't see that either. Right. You don't see that either. You don't see how they're cared for after. You don't see, because there's things that we talked about, like cuddling, food. After we're done playing, what do you need to feel better? Do you need a Gatorade? You need to smoke some weed? Do you need some wine? Do you need to be left alone? Do you need a bath? What do you need in order for you to feel replenished? It can be so beautiful, but the media has taken it and made it so ugly.
Extreme.
They've made it so ugly, so extreme. And there are people that like that. There are people that are into insane amounts of pain, but they are getting what they need in a safe and healthy space.
Yeah. I completely understand that. I completely understand.
Yeah.
Like there's no, like if I wanted something, I would have no problem hiring somebody in a sexual manner to
right
that, because listen, I won't get too much into it, but I have also a lot of friends who are sex workers and things like that. So yeah, it's just so, and that just highlights too about, you know, that's what the media does. Like, I don't even want to get it, but like, that's what they want to show is just
right.
Just the thing that's going to get this like visceral reaction from the person that's watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that visceral reaction turns into like this belief system about the way things are, even though the only damn thing they've ever seen
right.
some news story or some like 50 Shades of Grey, no shades of 50 Shades of Grey. And I didn't read it. I've heard from a lot of people in the community that that's like, you know, it's a not.
That's a trash example.
Yes. That's not the best example of the way things are in that particular.
Yeah.
So it's very important for everyone watching. It's like, just because you saw it once on a TV show or read it in a book,
right?
That's the totality of it. Probably is in fact
exactly
the tiniest bit of it, and you're missing
yes
of it. So
yes, yeah, it was almost a year before we did anything sexual. Just because she wanted to be absolutely sure that I felt safe, that I was in a good headspace, that I was okay physically, spiritually. A lot of people don't see that. And a lot of people who dominate professionally aren't talking about that because there's no allure in having conversations about your mental health and your feelings. Nobody wants to talk about that.
Right.
But
and you're like, now I'm going to have an orgasm. Okay.
Right. But
yeah.
the healing that your dominant can help facilitate for you can definitely lead to better orgasms. I'm having some of the best sex I've ever had, just from doing the work, doing my homework has led to a level of healing that I didn't even think I would be able to tap into. It has. And it has helped me tremendously. It's helped me tremendously. Even if you're not necessarily into BDSM, I think finding a therapist, support group, somewhere where you can feel truly safe, it's really important, but you also have to be willing to do the work. It's not pretty. It's not easy. Simple, yes. Easy, no. It's going to take time. It is going to take time. But it's so worth it.
I agree. I mean, that's literally everything I do with my life and my work is walk people through those experiences and seeing it unfold. And that's what I always say, like, even on the application to my program, it's like, this is probably going to be pretty uncomfortable for you. I put it right on the application because guess what? Looking at your whole self and your traumas and the things that have gotten you to the place where you are that aren't making you happy, that shit is messy. And also
right.
when you are willing to like uproot that, look at it compassionately,
yes.
love it, tell it it's okay, all of a sudden, like,
yes.
every possibility in the world seems attainable, when just before that, when you just
yes.
put that cover over it, it seemed like nothing was possible. So yeah, you got to walk through it,
mm-hmm.
walk through the fire. And yes, so I'm glad you did, because I'm glad we could.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I did too.
Yes. Okay. So I think I'm going to bring this to a close, only because, you know, I want people to
okay.
watch this, but I want maybe there'll be a part 2 if there's more down the line, because I'm really enjoying speaking with you. And I mean,
we can.
I was going to say maybe, and if you feel up for it, we can have like a conversation about experiences. If that's something you would want to speak on. And I don't know, like as far as like okay, about like secrecy, or not secrecy, but like boundaries between you and your domina. Like, I don't know, like what you're about, like, are you able to speak about specific experiences publicly? Like, I don't know what the rules are or the agreements are, but that kind of thing, because I have so many also experiences and things like that, that like, I'm sure I could have a whole series on just actual, because people are like, oh, that's cool, let's talk about the idea of it. Like, okay, well, what really happens when you close the door? Because people want to know.
Right.
let's think about making that maybe a second one. So, okay. Any other
I'm for it. Yeah, let's do it.
Last minute things that you want to add on for the people, or are you
well, I want to say that it's okay for you to want to stop doing something. It's okay for you to want to take a break for something. If you are feeling overloaded, overwhelmed, if you're feeling lost and confused and I don't know what's happening and what's going on with my life, it's not necessarily because you're in the middle of a midlife crisis. It's because it's you know that there are things that need to change, but you're so inundated and overloaded with the taking in of information from TV, from all these social media apps and everything. I highly suggest unplugging, getting into nature some kind of way, spending some time with yourself. It is not a bad thing.
No,
it's not.
It's not. I will just second.
No, even if it's just, even if it's 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, stick your feet in the grass and just be.
My favorite practice is grounding every day.
Just be. Yeah. Just be. You will feel so much better. And it's not going to be instant, but I guarantee you'll notice a shift. You'll notice a shift. And then, those questions I mentioned, asking myself, what do I want? How do I want to feel? Allow yourself to dream. One thing that I had stopped doing was dreaming. And I started feeling like my life would never be better than what it was because I stopped dreaming. Allow yourself to let your mind go wherever it wants to go.
No limits.
No limits. Don't limit yourself. As soon as you put the limit on it, it's done. Mm-hmm. It's done. Your mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not.
No, that's right.
Your mind doesn't know the difference. So as soon as you put that limit on it, that becomes what it is. Allow yourself to dream. And I posted on Facebook the other day, I'm in a season of keeping things for myself, which is kind of ironic because I'm doing this interview. But I'm in a season of keeping things for myself. I'm not telling everybody about my goals and my dreams and what I want for my life. Everybody doesn't need to know.
Yeah. And
everybody doesn't need to know.
If you want to tell, you can tell then because it's a season, right?
Exactly.
Season. And I think that's another, oh my God, we have so many great things to talk about, but life and sex and sexual desires. That's the other thing that I teach too. It's like, just because you were really into this particular way of relating to someone sexually for a while, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, that doesn't, like, immediately I find so many women are like, well, what's wrong with me? Why don't what? Nothing. It's immediately, it's a self-deprecation.
Right.
No, it's called ebbing and going through different seasons of your life.
Right.
And that's what's normal. What's not normal is acting like,
yes,
I call it the missionary mold. Like you just fit yourself into the missionary mold. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with missionary or anything like that, but that's, a lot of women are like, oh, well, that's just the way it is. I need to sit down and put the legs up. And that's the way it's like, no, break out of the mold.
No.
Sometimes you
yes.
want that and sometimes you don't. And that's actually normal. Pretending like you only want one thing, that's only the way that it's supposed to be.
Yes.
That's not healthy. That's just not healthy. So
yeah,
I agree.
Because change is the only constant. Change is the only constant.
Yes, ma'am. I'm looking like
just deal with it.
A fairy godmother, just giving out all the wisdom, sprinkling all the fairy dust of all the wisdom on everybody. Because it's true, though. Everything you're saying is pure truth, like unadulterated truth. So, thank you for sharing all of
You're
that.
welcome. My pleasure. Yeah, I love it.
All right, y'all. I think Loreal and I are going to close this up here. I think that we have a lot of room for more exploration. So I think we're going to touch back in on that at another time. But I hope you all enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, which was a lot and a lot of
good
self-realization and a lot of self-respect and honoring your pleasures and desires was, you know, you emoted that so perfectly and embody it. Like, that's the thing. You clearly, this is who you are. You're in your body. You love your body. You respect your body. You honor your body. And I think that's at the bottom and the foundation of all of this kind of sexual, safe, healthy sexual exploration is first and foremost loving all of this. And like you said, unconditionally. So thank you for embodying that and sharing it. And for everybody else out there, I hope you can learn something from Loreal, because I know I did. And I will look forward to seeing everybody on the next episode of Real Life Sex. Thank you so much, Loreal. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.